So we're just looking at the British Army Archer artillery system. This is a Swedish artillery system that the Army are using while we wait for the full permanent replacement, the Boxer variant RCH 155. Remember to check out the original video in the description. Comment below what your thoughts are and what you want to see next, but let's get into it.
So this is the Archer 155 self-propelled howitzer. Originally, the vehicle itself started off life as a Volvo dumper truck. It's since been enhanced by removing of the trough at the back and allowing it to fit a howitzer on it. The howitzer itself is a FH70, which is designed by the Swedes, which has now been sort of integrated into the Archer system, allowing them to sort of work in tandem as a mobile fires platform rather than a static gun. The vehicle itself is fully pressurized, so once the crew are inside, they're protected from the elements, any chemical threats, as well as a full air-conditioned heat cab, allowing crews to stay in there for a extended duration of time, which will keep them in the fight longer, effectively.
So that's actually really good, but all the older vehicles did have this, but the majority of the time it didn't work. The aircon didn't work, the heating didn't work, and sort of CBRN seals to protect you from sort of any sort of chemical attack were pretty useless because the vehicles were so old. You can fit a 3-man crew in this, I believe, and it can actually be operated by a 1-man crew. But pretty cool that they've managed to get a Volvo dump truck and put a 155 on it, because obviously the recoil in a 155 is pretty sort of intense. So they've had to do some sort of structural work to strengthen this up.
The cab itself, it's got all the fire control systems inside, which allows the crew to operate the main gun as well as the remote weapon system located on the top of the cab, as well as giving them a sort of 360 awareness around so they can engage targets with the remote weapon system as required. The main gun
So that's good as well. You used to have the AS90, and let's talk about sort of older armoured vehicles within the UK sort of that it has at its disposal. A lot of the time, yeah, you would have your little windows, you would have your sights, but it was still quite hard to see. So a lot of the time, guys would go, turret up with the old AS90. They would have to get out to get ammunition. You could only fit so much ammunition. I think it was like 6 rounds you'd load, and then you'd have to get more ammunition, so you weren't fully protected. Say you got ambushed by troops on foot or vehicles that come by sort of the gun line. With this, they can stay in the cab. They can do absolutely everything from the cab and stay fully protected. Any sort of issues, bring the turret down and drive straight off. So it's a lot quicker in and out of action, and they're fully protected, which is much better for the crew.
Itself then started off as a FH70 howitzer, now with a big autoloader on the back. It allows us to hit targets out to almost 40 kilometers, depending on ammunition we're using. We can use a mixture of ammunition, which includes high explosive, alume and smoke, as well as a bonus anti-tank round, which allows us to engage armoured targets in the depth with sort of a top-down attack munition similar to things like NLAW and Javelin.
That's really good.
When the gun comes into emplacement, the trail legs will go down, allowing the gun to become more stable when firing, stopping the gun wobbling, giving you a more accurate fire at the far end. So when it comes to reloading, all the
So that stopping the wobble is very, very important, especially for, say, first round hits or second or third round hits. The more wobble you have, the more you've got to sort of engage onto a target. So you've got to move the gun again back onto the target. If you've got less wobble, less movement within the vehicle, the gun is more stable. So when you hit the target the first round, say you want to put another 2-3 rounds on it, you haven't got to sort of re-sight onto that target. Those second, third, fourth rounds should still hit that target because you've got less movement within the barrel and the weapon system.
Charges can be loaded into the charge bay. This can be done by one person and a resupply vehicle. Basically, the rounds fly around on a big chute around the back of the vehicle and then are loaded by one guy. At the back here, you have the rear casing. Inside there is where the main armament works. All the systems inside there that allow the gun to operate, engaging its targets, reloading, and all that sort of business. And then you come around and you've got your shell loading bay. This is where all your projectiles go inside. And again, this comes up when we come to a resupply. We'll pull alongside a resupply vehicle, and we will start loading all the projectiles inside, programming it in the fire control system, so we're ready to engage on our next mission when we're called for. Once all that's done, the vehicle is good to go. The whole process normally takes about 6 minutes to complete with a well-disciplined crew. It's going to be really interesting to try and do it in these sorts of conditions here in Finland, especially with the cold temperatures at the moment sitting around sort of -10 sort of ratio. Be a real test on the troops' sort of ability to handle the cold.
My question with this is, I believe it holds 21 rounds, 22 rounds, give or take a few. Is that a mixture of, your high explosive, your illumination and smoke? Because then that's going to sort of lower your capability if you need to put a big rate of fire down. I know this is more of a shoot and scoot. You need less rounds to get that target hit because it's a lot more accurate, sort of like a sniper of the artillery. But if it's a mixture of smoke, illume and high explosive, what happens if you need to fire off a load of illume for troops? Do you have sort of only a minimal amount of illume and then you got to reload again? Or is it just loaded with a certain sort of rounds depending on what you think that mission is going to be? Because smoke comes in really handy with artillery, with troops on the ground. Having smoke to screen your movement or use as deception is really, really good. So I'd like to know a little bit more information on that, on what's the loading systems or numbers when it comes to the different types of rounds. And how close does a resupply truck follow you? I'm guessing quite closely, because with the older sort of AS90s, the light guns, you set up a gun line and then you have all your ammunition there and you've got lads running around. Obviously, guys are a lot more protected this, which is absolutely brilliant. But what's the capabilities of being able to switch between rounds and having enough ammunition for that mission set and any sort of obstacles that come around where you have to fire different munitions?
So the Archer itself has a crew of 3 people. So you have a commander, which is like myself, either a sergeant or a bombardier. And then you'll have an operator whose job is to basically put in all the data that's required for the fire mission to engage the targets. And then you have a driver as well, whose main role is sort of the navigation side, as well as driving and maintaining the actual whole sort of automotive side of the vehicle. So the Archer itself can be employed to suppress targets or destroy targets in sort of the distance between sort of where AS90 and MRS sort of mix. It fits in the middle ground of the battle space because it's got a longer range than AS90. It allows you to hit targets further away that you wouldn't have been able to previously with what we had with AS90.
That's obviously really good. I think the AS90 effective range was around 24 to 27 kilometres. This is obviously 40 kilometres. So increasing that capability, much better for troops on ground, and much better for the Royal Artillery.
Yeah, you can make a cup of tea in an Archer. It comes with a BV, as pretty much all British Army vehicles do. So the guys have got hot water for tea, coffee, as well as heating rations as well. So they are capable, once they're in that cab, they can sustain themselves pretty much until they run out of fuel.
Obviously, having that BV is very important.
No, arguably, it's probably the best place to be in Finland at the moment with a fully heated and air-conditioned cab. So the Archer, one of the really good features which we didn't have on previous platforms is the ability to sort of deliver multiple effects of ammunition. So by that I mean the effect that the round has at the other end. So whether it's a delayed fuse on high explosive or a proximity high fuse, for example, meaning that it detonates mid-air above the target rather than hitting the target. So you can potentially input that data into the mission to have different effects at the other end depending on what the observer requires. Yeah, so the idea behind like sort of deep strike capability is that once recce pushes forward, they can then send target data back to the guns, where traditionally you would have sort of AS-90, for example, rolling forward, supporting the battle with the tanks and the infantry. Archer kind of can work alongside recce and get that target information back from the recce call signs, and then sort of strike further without all the sort of middleman in the middle, sort of speeding up the process so the battle can roll a lot faster. That's the idea behind the concept.
That's really good if that works, because it's all about speed and momentum. Being within recce, when I was in, you'd obviously push deep behind enemy lines, whether you was in an armoured vehicle or you was on foot, possibly in an OP, surface OP, and you're basically providing information back to the commands so they can build a picture of what's going on, so then they can decide on where to move the troops. So the more information you can pass on back, the better, because they can build a better picture. But also what the recce we used to do is obviously strike targets as well, or have the capability to strike targets to sort of disrupt their movement or destroy enemy convoys or troops before they even made it to sort of the fighting troops, the infantry, the tanks, to sort of decrease their numbers and prevent sort of any further casualties to our friendly troops. So if you can make that sort of capability better, because what the issue you might have with being in recce when you're in that OP and you're sending that information back and you're getting sort of vehicles or troops moving towards you, or they sort of spot you, hopefully not all, but they are moving through your location, and your mission is to either destroy them, or it comes down the net that we need these vehicles, we need these troops destroyed. If you can get that information to the gun line faster, and they can convert that data into gun data, so your speak gets put into you give the grids, you give the information, they put it into data, that goes into the gun, so the gun can then line onto the target. If that process is quicker, that could possibly save the recce troops guys, or it could possibly mean destroying more vehicles. Being in recce, you've got binoculars, you've got other sort of capabilities to spot the targets, spot the vehicles, the troops as soon as possible, but sometimes they do just creep up on you, and if they're sort of moving through at speed, it can be quite hard to AS-90 light gun, send the information back to the command post converts that data into the guns get ready, they then fire, they're not as accurate, you've then got to adjust the guns onto the target to then put a fire for effect down. If you've got going from recce to the gun line, that's faster. You've got the archer, which is more accurate and hit a target much faster. It speeds up the whole process, and you've got more chance of sort of destroying, suppressing or neutralising that target.
So the Archer itself can sort of achieve a top speed of around 50 kilometers an hour. For a vehicle that weighs almost 36 tons, that's quite impressive.
Very impressive,
It's
yeah.
not the fastest vehicle out there, but it's got a lot of torque behind it, and it can really trudge through some tough ground, which is a real good capability, especially out here in Finland when you're hitting the soft snow and some of the sort of boggier areas. So.
Really, really good video and sort of explanation on why the British Army have chose the Archer artillery system. The question is, why have they chose the RCH-155, the Boxer variant, as the permanent vehicle and not the Archer? We will see. It's going to cost a lot more money to train from AS-90 to Archer, Archer to RCH-155. You've then got to retrain your troops again, which takes time. There's obviously some sort of, work being done, that they've decided that. But I definitely think the Archer is much better than the AS-90, and it could even outdo the possible light gun, which is still a brilliant artillery system, but it's very, very old. But like I said, he said the best bit about it is the speed of data, and honestly, that is key. As I explained, going from recce, just the sending the data and converting the data is quicker, but because it can get in and out of action quicker, because it's a lot more accurate, and it can hit targets quicker as long as the grid is correct. it's, you know, it's going to speed up the battlefield, it's going to hopefully destroy more targets, and it's going to save more lives. So that is absolutely brilliant. And for all those looking to join the artillery who may be moving on to the archer, you will actually get a working BV, you'll get working aircon, you'll get working heating, and it won't leak water, unlike all the older sort of armoured vehicles that the British Army is slowly getting rid of. You get dripped on by water, the heating barely works, you have no aircon, and you can barely see where you're going. So for that sense, it's much, much better. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Comment below with what your thoughts are. Remember to check out our website, combatreadyhq.co.uk. It's going live soon with our new products. Sign up to email list. Remember to turn notifications on so you stay updated with our future videos as well. Thanks for watching.